Welcome to the Samurai Way podcast, where ancient wisdom fuels modern success. And I'm your host, Lori Tsugawa, and this is your space to sharpen your mindset, strengthen your discipline, and live with purpose. Inspired by the Code of Bushido and my book, Let the Samurai Be Your Guide, each episode brings you powerful conversations and practical insights you can apply right away in your work, your relationships, and your daily life. This is about showing up with clarity, making decisions with courage, and building a life rooted in integrity. Because in a world full of noise and distraction, the Samurai Way cuts through, helping you focus on what truly matters. And if you're ready to lead with intention and take your next step forward, you're in the right space. So follow, share, and leave a review to help spread the message. Now, let's step onto that path, the Samurai Way. Konnichiwa, minasan. We are here at the Samurai Way podcast, and I have a special guest for you. Today, we have Dr. Mejia with us, and she has a unique viewpoint about life, and she's a psychologist. She's a clinical psychologist and a certified professional coach, burnout recovery strategist. Don't we all need that? And former healthcare executive who helps high-functioning, high-achieving professionals recover from chronic stress. She blends psychology, nervous system, science, and somatic healing to help people move from a survival mode into sustainable success. Her work focuses on redefining achievement, honoring the body's wisdom, and helping people rebuild their lives with great alignment, authenticity, and resilience. So please help me welcome today Dr. Mejia.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the intro, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
And could you just, maybe not many people on the podcast know about you, but you have an amazing background. And could you give us a little bit of insight into how you got from maybe high school days to where you are now?
Yes, for sure. So I am originally from New York City, and from very early on, I was always interested in behaviors and why people do the things that they do. So it was really a no-brainer for me to go into psychology. And as a psychologist, I've worked with pretty much the entire developmental journey from young children all the way to, our senior population. Along the way, I've also done a lot of work with veterans, and of course, that involves a lot of trauma-focused therapy. So I've done a lot of direct care work. I've also been a leader in various spaces, and I have to say that throughout the bulk of my career in mental health, burnout has been pretty much present. Of course, there's been peaks and valleys, not only within myself, but also really seeing it in many other colleagues. And it came to a point in 2024 that really coincided with where I'm at developmentally in my own perimenopausal journey, where I really wasn't feeling well, and I knew that something really had to change. And so back in 2024, I took a really big leap and I quit my last full-time job, knowing that I could do, my own private practice. And I decided to enroll in a coaching certification program because I knew that the rest of my career, I wanted it to still be meaningful and impactful and really take my experience and my colleagues' experience and really how to help other, leaders, but women specifically in their own journey so that no one, like my mission is really to help people understand that they aren't broken. There isn't something wrong with them, that what they are feeling is just information, right? And if we don't judge it, we can always work with information as to what do I need? What do I don't need? What needs to stay the same or what needs to shift entirely?
Oh, that's a beautiful segue into the next question or next topic. Is about how you took that. You talked about broken pieces and people getting burned out, and then also with the Japanese philosophy of Kintsugi, which I think it blends beautifully. So, if you could
Mhm.
expound on that, whether it be with the veterans or with the women or just the people that you work with, that would be very interesting. I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll focus more on the women,
Okay.
40 and above, right? That's who I primarily see. And I have to say that regardless of background and demographics, I hear the same, like narratives and limiting beliefs that they are broken, that I'm no longer the person that I used to be or
Uh-huh.
that I should be. And so again, they're coming in with the belief that I am just so broken and someone please help me put my pieces back together, help fix me. And again, I hear it like this is like whether it's a consultation or the first few sessions, like this is the recurrent theme. And
Uh-huh.
so very quickly, it just becomes very obvious that our work is about, well, number one, what is the truth here, which isn't that there's anything broken, but really viewing the wounds, the pain, the health symptoms, the mood symptoms, that even though it feels terrible at times, it's just information, and really reframing from a space of this is broken to this is information, and I can use that to really help empower myself and help me make really informed decisions about my next steps.
Uh-huh. Because a lot of times people say I'm not, don't be bitter, get better. And that's how I felt about my accident. I could have gone, just say, okay, que sera, sera. I'll just read at seventh grade level and live a happy, unhappy life for the rest of my life. And I go, no, I'm too young for this, and I'm sure that your clients, patients feel the same way, that they just need it, like you said, reframing. It's like, is the glass half empty or is it half full? You can help
Right.
them reframe. And
Mhm.
so I'm really interested in this because maybe about a month ago, we had a naturopath who I hope you connect with, and I hope that there could be some kind of synergy, but just expound on that a little more, because I think people are really interested in this. And because you're a psychologist, I don't know if you know, but this podcast is named, I think that was about 24 in Apple Podcasts of people's favorites in psychology.
Mm,
So,
mhm,
so people are
mhm.
really resonating with psychology and Japanese principles, and I think there's a great, uh, a good balance and a good takeaway from it, because it's like you think you're broken, but be like Humpty Dumpty, put the pieces back together again.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think this principle that we're really focusing on today is really, to me, like the perfect like metaphor for the
Mm-hmm.
burnout recovery work that I'm doing, because I'm not here to tell people, no, you shouldn't ever believe that you're broken, right? That's never my role, but it's again viewing it from another angle, right? Like, how can growth still happen even if there's this sense of being and feeling different, and feeling broken. So again, I'm not here to tell people you shouldn't be thinking in that way, but really understanding what else, right? What else can possibly emerge from this experience? What else is this, telling you about how you're feeling? What are you learning about yourself, right? So it's just very growth focused, it's empowering. Even though the wounds are still there, right? The scars are still there, but it's really helping them not stay stuck with the wounds and the scars. I mean, we're going to
Yes.
honor it, right? Because pain happened, hurt happened. But then thinking about sometimes in psychology, we call it post-traumatic growth, right? Not that we're loving the adverse conditions that cause the pain and the burnout to begin with, but with pretty much almost any experience in our life, we continue to evolve and expand and grow.
Have you, want to ask you this question, have you seen your patients kind of stay in that or have a tendency to stay in that PTSD, like what you just described, that it was traumatic and then they need to move on?
Yeah, yeah. I think every individual that I meet, I'm gonna always honor their respective journey. Some folks they really need to spend a lot of time really processing
Uh-huh,
and they want to
processing.
talk about their experience. Of course, we're gonna do that. And that's the therapy piece of it. And at some point, I think the individual really intuitively knows, when
Mm-hmm.
am I ready to really take the next step. And I think that's when the eventual coaching piece comes into play. And I want to expand a little bit more
Sure.
about what I'm presently doing because when people ask me, what are you doing? Right? Are you a psychologist or you're a coach? Well, I'm both, but it really depends on what the person needs. So I call myself a burnout recovery strategist because I'm really trying to help the individual figure out what do you really need and want right now. Some people come in wanting to just figure out what am I going to do with this job and this career. And they want to talk about how psychologically unsafe their environment is.
Uh-huh.
But then fairly quickly, what can happen is that old wounds also surface, right? Old wounds are being triggered by whatever is happening now. And so that's when we're, really figuring out like, I think we need to do some of this healing past work first. And so that's the therapy piece. And then in traditional therapy, we diagnose, we treat, we heal, and then we say goodbye to the client. And then we never know really what happens to them. And so now that I'm a certified coach, I can offer really the next step in their journey, their care journey. Now that you are feeling better, you've healed from current trauma and past trauma. Now, what do you want to do moving forward? What decisions, what goals do you want to focus on now that you're feeling a lot less burdened from these old traumas and that were really triggered from what was happening now that led to burnout?
Uh-huh. So, as a coach, when you see your patient client move from that discovery and figuring out where they want to go, and then going towards the healing, how do you guide people through that process as a coach?
Yeah, yeah. So first of all, I am very clear, when therapy ends and the
Mhm.
coaching relationship begins, right? Because, with therapy, it is a regulated,
Mhm.
field that has its own ethical standards. And then we're moving into a really different relationship. And I always want to give the individual options. There's no
Mhm.
assumptions made that they have to continue with me, but they do, right? Because we've had this relationship.
Mhm.
And so then we have a new agreement, right? Because
Mhm.
it's a different episode of care. And in the beginning, I just do a lot of, education orientation about what is coaching, what coaching is it. We're not going to dip back into therapy land. If it's
Yes.
needed, then we have to talk about that. And would it make sense for us to change the nature of our relationship, or would a referral need to happen so that we can continue with the coaching,
Yes.
framework? So a lot of it is just really education, because still a lot of people are not super clear about what coaching is. Sometimes people feel that they always have to see a therapist, and that's not necessarily the case.
Oh, so that must be really gratifying. You're moving from one phase to the next phase and see
Yeah.
people like almost like take off with their wings.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things, I'm clear about it now, but I kind of felt it along the way, just being curious, like what happens to my therapy clients? Because they've
Uh-huh.
done such tremendous work. I mean, I always view my clients as just so brave and courageous because of the things that they're coming to. Therapy sessions require so much strength and vulnerability. And then we're done, right? And I'm always curious about, oh my God, what are they doing with all of these insights? And yeah, just being unburdened, by the things that they worked on in therapy. And now I have the opportunity to offer that
Uh-huh.
to my clients. Like I get to see, what are their next steps, especially when, people decide to take a big leap and leave their job and consider a new career pathway in their 40s and 50s. Yeah, and it's just amazing. And I get to see that. And I get to continue asking really important questions that helps, facilitate their ongoing journey.
Uh-huh. Well, just in speaking with you, Mirna, Dr. Mejia, I would feel very comfortable talking to you about what's gone on, like my accidents. And I was telling you things that I usually don't tell people, but it is a part of me. And I am working towards being coming whole again. I'm writing another book. So
Mhm.
it is very, very therapeutic to speak with somebody that has that gentle voice and non-judgmental. That is the thing that a lot of patients get turned off, is like, you shouldn't do this, or you should do that, or you should be here, you shouldn't, this kind of, well, you're not in their shoes
Yeah.
for one thing with their experiences. So thank
Yeah.
you for
Well,
being that type of therapist. That's really amazing. Plus coach. So you've
yeah.
added
Thank
that to
you.
your practice. Can you
Yeah.
share about how long have you been doing combining both?
Yeah. So, well, as a psychologist, I've been doing this for a little
Mhm.
over 20 years. And coaching, I started my coaching journey pretty much in 2024.
Okay.
In fact, yes, I left my last job in October of 2024, and I started my coaching program, I think at the end of the month in October. So I knew, that I wanted to just deepen my repertoire, right, of
Mhm.
skills, because I knew that I wanted to continue working with women, and on my own terms, so started my coaching practice, which is called Your True Canvas, which I think is also why this principle that we're here today focusing on really resonated with me, because when I started thinking of what am I going to name my company, I knew I didn't want to name it Kia because that's my therapy practice, right? But what spoke to me is that if our life was represented by like artwork, and I'm not an artist, so um on the canvas, we have so many narratives of, coming from our youth, the roles that we've assumed, the roles that people place onto us, and on and on and on. But who are we really? And so a lot of the work that I do in my coaching practice is really looking at, well, what's on the current canvas and what
Mm,
belongs to you and what has never needed to be on this canvas. And so we're just stripping away at the limiting beliefs and the assumptions that belong to other people and other situations. And in the end, the canvas is simple, the canvas is pure, it's beautiful, and it really represents their true self that has been there all along.
mm,
And with the Kintsugi principle, when I started seeing the pictures of the gold, right, it just resonated with me because what's underneath all of those layers of stuff is the person's pure gold. And
mm.
so when you and I first chatted, I'm like, yes, I want to talk about this. So thank you again.
Oh, well, you're welcome. I love the idea of kintsugi because people, if it happens, they think, oh, well, it's all gone. But so the Japanese actually feel it's just as beautiful, if not more, because you're putting them together, you're fixing it, and you're not discarding it. You're honoring it. And
Right.
even royalty did that's how it started with royalty. He
Mm-hmm.
broke something that shouldn't have, and so a potter or somebody fixed it and he loved it. And so that's the art
Mm-hmm.
form that exists today. And I think it's a wonderful, it's a good metaphor for especially people like you. It could
Mm-hmm.
be all of our lives. Take those broken pieces and make something out of it that
Right.
instead of letting it destroy you, and don't let that do it, make it become better instead of bitter, or you can become even better
Right.
prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's what my mom used to always say, just keep doing it, there's always a way. And I think feel that, you will help people find their way. And that's really a beautiful thing, finding out doing it, reinvent. Actually, you, in some ways, you kind of reinvented it or added to what you're doing it to make it different, but just as
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you're working with women, and that's such a natural thing for you because you've gone through it yourself. And so you can help a lot of people, a lot of women who don't know what's going on. And, it's not the end of the world, but it's just another phase that people
Right.
are going through, especially, well, women are going through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And it is a phase, but sometimes, the phase is just it persists for years, and it further fuels this notion that there's must be something really wrong with me if it's taking this long for me to feel better and feel less paralyzed, with my decision making.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Have you ever heard that saying, what you think about, you bring about? It just expands the more
Oh
you think
yeah.
about. And I
Yeah.
think
Oh,
there's some truth in
absolutely.
that it's, there's the negativity, just like in the world, there's the news and all the sensationalism. And then there are people, everyday people, and so many wonderful people that can be highlighted too, instead of just the people that are doing, you know, going through the negativity and going
Mm-hmm.
through that process. So
Yeah.
that's what intent of my podcast is, to show people that there is another way, and the Japanese way is one of many, but it happens to resonate with me because I'm Japanese, and I rediscovered a lot of my cultural heritage after I grew up and went to Japan for the first time, and that started it. And I've been to Japan quite a few times. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
have enjoyed our conversation so much, Dr. Mirna Mejia. I'm just really thrilled that you're here with us. And before we part, would you like to just share with people a bit of wisdom, uh, something about your big plans, and even connect with you? We will put that information
Sure.
on the podcast.
Sure. Sure. I don't know if this is big wisdom, major wisdom, but really what we've been talking about today is if there's ever any thought that you're hearing that there's something wrong with me or that I'm broken, that's the opportunity to, reach out
Mhm.
and talk to someone, and you don't necessarily have to figure out like what's the right path in the beginning. Is it the therapy route or the coaching route? It's just reach out to
Yes.
someone, just ask questions and hopefully the person can steer you in the direction that you're needing. But that's really it. It's like once you start hearing those inner thoughts, like I'm broken, something is wrong with me. That right there is just information that something needs to be addressed.
Mhm.
And rarely is it truly that you're broken. In fact, I have yet to meet anyone in which they have convinced me that there's anything broken about them.
Mm. Well, that's very encouraging.
Yeah, yeah. And how to reach me. So the name of my company is Your True Canvas. So you could find me on Instagram, on LinkedIn. I also have a Substack, and everything is Your True Canvas. And then, of course, I have my personal LinkedIn page, my name, Mirna Mejia. So I can be easily found. And yeah, welcome connections, welcome messages. I'm here if I can help you in your own healing and recovery journey, even if it's just providing information, I'm happy to do so.
Well, thank you so much. It's been more than a pleasure to speak with you, and I feel happy and encouraged because it's just you're so bubbly and so kind, so kind. And I know people would feel that same way. I mean, they can just feel that on the podcast. And so I
Thank
wanted to
you.
say that this is a wrap. It's been really exciting to speak with Dr. Mejia, and please reach out to her and watch the podcast. If nothing else, watch, like, subscribe, and share with people. Share with especially women that you know that are in that position, because I believe she could help you, or she could maybe even point you somewhere else. So I want to say thank you, everyone, so much for joining us on the Samurai Way podcast. And we'll call this a wrap and maybe hopefully see you next week. And be sure to watch all the replays because we have a little over 60 now. We've been doing this for a year and we're going to keep going. And I love it. And I love my VA, Annelle, who really helps keep this thing running. So thank you, Annelle, and thank you, Dr. Mejia. It's been a pleasure. And
Thank you.
see you next week on the Samurai Way podcast. Thank you, domo arigato, for listening to the Samurai Way podcast. Now it's your turn. Take what you learned today and put it into practice because knowledge has no power unless it's applied. So if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who would benefit from it. And be sure to follow, like, and leave a review. It helps us reach more people walking this path. Until then, next time, stay disciplined, stay focused, and continue living the samurai way.